Welcome to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism with Karen Sprinkle, certified psychedelic guide, trauma therapist, and author of The Thriving Self. Drawing from over 30 years of experience in trauma therapy, embodied Buddhist practice, and immersive Eastern living, Karen explores the many paths to healing through conversation with Dharma teachers, scientists, and mental health professionals. Listen in and discover new ways of thinking about what it means to truly heal and to thrive.
So I'm very honored and truly touched to have Erin Treat with us for the podcast Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism. And I want to tell you a little bit about Erin. Erin lives in Durango, Colorado, and has been practicing Buddhist meditation for 30 years. In addition to serving as the guiding teacher at Vallecitos Mountain Retreat Center since 2013, she teaches regularly at Spirit Rock and Insight Meditation Society. She served over 20 years in leadership on the Teaching Council of the Durango Dharma Center. Erin teaches the practical and the profound, from a heart grounded in respect for mystery and the many faces of awakening. Her approach to sharing the Dharma is influenced by her ongoing experience as a student of the Diamond Approach and by Thanissaro and Kittisaro's Dharmapala training, designed to bring forth an embodied bodhisattva ideal within the lineage of Theravada Buddhism. Erin enjoys working with small groups of committed students over time and regularly offers classes, retreats, and mentoring to students from around the country. Erin is happiest dancing, hiking, cooking, and being in the mountains and rivers she calls home. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm really delighted to be here with you and be on your podcast.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Erin, if you don't mind, even though we just introduced you, if you can maybe share a little bit about your personal story about what attracted you to the Dharma, like how and why start the Dharma path?
Yeah, boy, the Dharma path is such a deep, ongoing love affair in my life. And growing up in Fargo, North Dakota, as part of a Unitarian family, I had a kind of spiritual hunger in me from an early age. And growing up in the Unitarian Church, it was a wonderful way to learn about different world religions, to learn how to take spiritual political action. But there was a heart hunger for something deeper. And I started Dharma practice when I was 19 years old, living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I am so fortunate to have encountered practice early in my life, because my life has had plenty of ups and downs, but I would have suffered so much more without the ground of my Dharma practice. In my early 20s, there was a sense that if I couldn't quite sit still with myself, which I couldn't, something wasn't quite right. And I started sitting retreats. So difficult, so difficult. There was a sense early on like I didn't enjoy the practice, but the teachings rang true deep in my heart. And so essentially, as I began to practice, even though it was so difficult, in a short period of time, the Dhamma really became the center of my life. I built a whole life as a young woman that allowed me to be able to practice for extended periods of time. And really, as I continued to practice more and more deeply, I began being invited to teach. And the journey of saying yes to my path as a teacher has only served to really deepen my own practice. So for me, there's been a deep calling to explore consciousness, to explore what it means to live a meaningful life, life and to really grow the heart of compassion that is so needed in our world that is troubled and aching and beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So well said. And, since you've done your own journey now for 30 years,
Yeah.
you have taught hundreds, if not thousands, I would say thousands of students. You probably have a very unique perspective about suffering.
Mm.
And when your students bring forth suffering to you on their journey. And for me, obviously, as a trauma therapist, I like to see trauma through the lens of suffering, right?
Yes.
And how would you say the Dharma has supported clients, specifically students, specifically in an acute traumatic state?
In an acute traumatic state, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Dharma practice is inherently regulating if the practice is done and taught well. So practicing with the Dhamma teaches us how to recognize when the system is moving into a space of dysregulation. And even the simplest of practices, the capacity to direct the attention to something like the sensations of the palms resting or the body sitting, just that the training of the simple and often overlooked capacity to direct attention is a way of beginning to move the system back in the direction of balance. For me, part of Dhamma is also Sangha, is also community. We can never separate the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And within a state of high activation or traumatic activation, so often what is needed is not to sit alone on the cushion with the eyes closed, but is a kind of relational contact, being in the presence and community of spiritual friends, of folks who get it and who can allow those waves to move through. Community is a huge part of how the practice supports moving in the direction of regulation. I could go on and on. Should I say more on that, or is that a...
Well, it helps me understand your frame, because the way I like to hold it too is that whenever we have a traumatic event and when we don't process with others,
Right. That's right.
Shame, right?
That's right.
It's over. And then we move forth in the world with a lot of shame. And so I like to say to folks too that when we're in shame, the antidote to shame is being with others. And it's so antithetical to our impulse, right? We usually want to withdraw when we feel shame.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you brought in the Sangha and the importance of community.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering about that for you too, as a Dharma teacher, with shame. Like, would you say shame is the same, for your Dharma students too, that you encourage them just to have more sitting in the Sangha when they're in shame?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to be able to talk about shame more and more, on podcasts, we hear Brene Brown, we hear We Can Do Hard Things, all these podcasts where shame isn't so peripheral anymore. Shame is recognized as something that most of us deal with on one level or another. And the presence of shame I see as one of the greatest, simultaneously an obstacle and opportunity within the spiritual path. But in my experience teaching, I don't see the path unfold deeply in a meaningful way without metabolizing the presence of shame. Shame can really get in the way if we don't know how to work with it. And part of what I see in the Dhamma communities that I serve and work with that are healthy communities is just the invitation to really be in the fullness of our humanity together, to kind of put aside ideas that awakening looks neat and perfect and still, but that awakening is all of it. It's the hot mess of our lives. And the more we can be with being real about the presence of shame, the more we can begin to soften and become less identified and move into the truth of who and what we are.
And this may be a personal opinion, right?
Yes.
But I'd like to share it with you.
Yes.
I would imagine that your Dhamma students feel so safe with you, with your teaching, because you yourself share vulnerability and talk about your own personal life and sensations and stories that you've had to go through, right? So it's a kind of a sharing of vulnerability, a sharing of shame that helps us embrace our humanity with each other. So I have a personal bias, which I'll own, of authenticity, right?
Beautiful.
And how do we really drop into community and sangha
Yeah.
unless authentic?
Absolutely. I think of how we often use the word realization as a way of speaking about awakening, and the root of realization is real. So I feel like the place where we meet is in our capacity to really be real
Nice.
together. Yeah, so needed. So needed.
And what forces us to be more real than having a traumatic event and or a psychedelic journey, which we'll get to, right? But
Beautiful.
have a traumatic event. I mean, my goodness, we're so alive with the realness of sensation of like anger and fear, right? And overwhelm and lack of feeling of safety and control in one's own body.
That's right.
It's so real. We can't not choose to be fake. We can't choose to be inauthentic. We're in a traumatized state. So that's why I love working with trauma survivors, is because they're so real, right? Yeah. And the Dhamma, what it can bring to them, because it's a shared, like you said, it's a shared humanity.
That's right. And a Dharma doorway. You know, as much as certain types of traumas I would never wish on myself or anyone, trauma is part of what happens in the course of our human lifetimes. And just so often people come to the path as a way to learn to navigate through the traumatic activation, to find meaning, to move through kind of from contractedness to connectedness, to move from isolation to belonging. And the Dhamma is just part of that, as is your work as a psychotherapist, hand in hand.
Yeah, but even as a psychotherapist, right? Sometimes it can only go so far because it's an individual to individual process.
Right.
Again, where I really respect your work and like you said about the Sangha, because a client can really be vulnerable with their psychotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
Have to go out into the world and be among others. So that's where the Sangha comes in, of like holding the humanity together. It's almost like you can't have one without the other, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of the beauty of the design, right? It's just, not only do we need Sangha to deepen in our practice, we are Sangha. And part of how we become meaningful community has to do with the depth of nurturing our own personal freedom.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I would be very curious, if you feel like you can share it all, if you had any personal traumas and or psychedelic experiences that you felt really kind of moved you to a different level or a deepening awareness of yourself or your feelings about humanity.
Just sitting with your question, personal traumas or psychedelic experiences that have kind of, it sounds like opened my connection to and sense of humanity. Oh gosh, so many, Karen, particularly the former, particularly in the department of trauma. Just breathing here, because I notice even as you ask the question, there's kind of this sense of like, oh, is it okay to talk about this publicly? But it is, and it's really, really important that we do. For me, it's not just the trauma, but the resolution, the trauma and the healing that has kind of braided me from my strategies of freezing, of feeling isolated, of feeling inside of a stuck system, to a remarkable appreciation for my own capacity for resilience. And I know that can be a word that's used in different ways these days. I really mean resilience as a kind of empowerment to heal. I'm going to weave this together, I remember an event that happened a long, long time ago in my life, but it was a traumatic event that was really difficult to move through. And after that event occurred, I was having all these strange autoimmune physical symptoms for many years. I could say a lot about that, but it was limiting to me in my life, and I didn't feel so good. And it was fascinating to watch as I was navigating these symptoms. I also started engaging in deeper concentration practice in my Dharma practice. And what ended up happening, whether it's causation or correlation, I don't know. But what ended up happening was that as the concentration practice deepened, my physical symptoms began to clear, and they came to clear completely. And in saying this, I don't want to say that my orientation is that just, you can meditate your way out of anything. That wasn't what happened, but it was as if the concentration practices were opening up more mysterious dimensions of my own experience of consciousness with very real physical consequences. I began sleeping again. My system began settling again. And it certainly wasn't primarily through talk therapy. Talk therapy is really important, but there was a sense of something deeper was being sourced. And that, I would say that wove me into a deepened appreciation of my own humanity, but it even went beyond that. It wove my humanity into a deeper appreciation of the mystery of reality, of something even larger than humanity. Something more with the flavor of true nature, perhaps, the magical, mysterious truth that holds our lives.
Beautiful. I'm just wondering, when you say true nature, just for our audience, in case they don't know what that means, like true nature or, absolute bodhicitta or emptiness, whatever, however you want to describe that. So, yeah, the audience.
Great. Because I actually practice in two streams in the Diamond Approach and in Buddha Dharma, it's important to have clarity around how I'm using that term. I will say the mystery within which we participate through the totality of our lives. I will say the deepest nature of the human heart, which I understand the deepest nature to be free from greed, free from hatred, free from confusion, but clear, responsive, awake, innately kind. Yeah, it's like what we long to return to and what we've always come from.
Nice. So I think I hear you saying that the true nature is kind of beyond the I, kind of beyond the self. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I think that's what the Buddha said too. Yeah, I think so.
So it's not like I am suffering, but there is suffering.
Yeah, and the paradox, right? There is suffering, and the suffering of Erin Treat is a little different than the suffering of someone listening to this podcast. We are always within this paradox, right, of these universal truths and these very personal particularities that we don't want to jump over.
And so you describe this kind of non-ordinary state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
You perhaps achieve that through meditation. Right?
That's one way. Mm-hmm.
That's one way, right? Like some people seek the psychedelics so that they can
That's
have
right.
a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And then for very, experienced Buddhist practitioners or any meditation practitioner, they can also experience non-ordinary states of consciousness. I mean, when we go to sleep at night, we have a non-ordinary state of consciousness. Right?
That's right. That's right.
And I like to compare it to trauma. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's a great example. I'm right here with you.
Yeah, so like dream states or the highway freezing state is a non-ordinary state of consciousness. And that's how I like to describe it to trauma survivors too, is it's not what they're experiencing is actually extremely normal. Consciousness might be a little bit behind or in front of the awakened state of being. trying to get them balanced again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you had kind of non-ordinary states of consciousness, was there ever a time that it was disorientating rather expansive?
In the moment, not disorienting. Not in the moment. In the moment, there can just be more of a sense of immersion. But I will say that integrating non-ordinary states, the experience of integrating them has been disorienting at different times, which I don't see as a problem. I see as a healthy process of spiritual maturation. I see it in myself. I see it in the people I work with, that as we open to deeper truth, it's disorienting to the structures that have been invested in familiar ways of understanding. So yeah, for me, like in my world, sitting at meditation retreat, at this point, the retreats aren't so hard. I really enjoy them, but coming back is hard because, because it's disorienting. And a meditation retreat is a journey of sorts. It's a journey of sorts. And with every journey, there's the return. And the return is like where the rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. Like the post-retreat syndrome.
Yeah, right.
Completely. Yes. It's disorientating to come back into this realm of reality sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Erin, do you have any, without disclosing names of any of your students, do you have any examples of a student maybe who presented to you with trauma, for example, or a traumatic event, or even maybe a psychedelic journey that was traumatic for them, and how you did help them orientate back?
Yeah. I mean, countless. Working with trauma is a part of my job. It's part of why people who do what I do need to be trained in trauma healing, whether it's through, there are many, many different modalities. So it's kind of almost hard actually to pick one because it's such a part of the fabric of what I do. Help, I guess, I could talk about a student I've worked with for a long time or someone on retreat. Working with regulation and trauma is just such a part of the fabric of the material we awaken through.
I think maybe for me, what I was seeking, if it's possible, is, so for example, we were comparing to psychotherapy earlier.
Yeah.
And so when we come into a psychotherapy session, we're talking about the trauma that happened and how we feel, and we talk about it, we process it, but not necessarily through the lens of the sensations and cessation of sensation, unless we're somatically trained, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we may or may not process it through the lens of Buddhist psychology, right? And
Right.
suffering is part of life in Buddhist psychology.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, do you have an example, or even clumping all of your students together, of what they, like we talked about earlier, maybe what they got from the meditation practice or sitting that helped them digest more than just talking about it?
Sure.
But, yeah.
Sure. I'm thinking of one person in particular, and this person was navigating the territory of the death of a child. And that's big territory to navigate, no matter how much practice we have. That's not going to be territory free from suffering. And we would sit together and do ceremony together and weep and create altars. And what ended up really being the through line for this person was devotional practice, not sitting, being with mindfulness of breathing, but opening up into a larger kind of love and devotion. We were working with the image of Kuan Yin, who's actually kind of behind me, the embodiment of compassion. And this person could begin to feel her relationship to the universal force of Kuan Yin, this presence of compassion. And because she was connecting with this presence that could hold, that was bigger than her and could hold the pain her heart was going through, that's what helped her begin to actually feel her body again. And there was a sense of the devotional dimensions of practice, which can be a little different than some of how we might be familiar with teaching insight meditation. It was, again, that relational dimension, I guess, is what I'm coming back to, is the relationship with this archetypal figure that she began to feel her butt on the cushion again, because it was like she wasn't alone. Kuan Yin was always with her.
Erin, that's so beautiful. And as you're speaking, I'm looking at the image of Kuan Yin as you're speaking about
There's
that.
a reason she's at my back. I need her too. Yeah.
I mean, how beautiful. So again, this beyond oneself of Kuan Yin.
Exactly.
Hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Erin, you said something super important. You said we wept together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there it is again, right? That humanity with.
Right.
Humanity with. Not like, oh, I'm going to teach you this skill set to help you. I'm going to teach you how to talk to yourself, or I'm going to teach you how to sit on your cushion so you can meditate longer. It's like, no, you wept together.
None of that other stuff matters in these moments. You know, in that kind of a moment, I'm not going to go grab a book off the wall and read her a sutta. I'm going to sit and have our hearts resonate together. Yeah. Yeah. Time and again. And that's just one story of countless others, you know, countless others. People come, you know, to the path with kinds of deep sexual trauma, many kinds of trauma. And together we return to an embodiment of the practice. And the practice isn't one thing, and it really doesn't live in a book somewhere. It lives in the here and now. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So similar to the question about if you've had students, you know, with the trauma that you helped guide.
Yes.
If you've had any particular student or students or group of clusters of students that have either had traumatic experiences from psychedelics that they needed some Dharma holding to help process, or opening, where they came to you and said, oh my God, I had this psychedelic journey and I get it. And, you know, so if there's anything you'd like to share that your students.
I'd love to share. In my experience, other teachers would probably have different answers. I haven't sat with a student who's had a traumatic experience related to a psychedelic. There's one person who's worked with me who undertook a psychedelic journey, and they didn't love it. You know, they didn't love it. They said it's just like getting high. It wasn't kind of the awakening experience they hoped for, but that's not traumatic. That just wasn't what they had in mind. I will say, while for me personally, psychedelics aren't so much my own path, I have seen wise use of plant medicine really support the freedom of a number of people that work with me. And part of what has supported this is not a recreational approach to the engagement with psychedelics, but working with an experienced practitioner like yourself, going in with clear intention. I was thinking of somebody I spoke with some time ago who just kind of had this very, very, very accomplished practitioner who's just kind of had this certain tape in their mind that's a message about their worth, who they are, their lovability, who has engaged in a very, very deliberate way in the world of psychedelics. And it's fascinating what's happened for them. there's a sense that, we call this kind of the Sankara stream. We call these kind of habit patterns, the way the consciousness gets patterned. It's just not arising for them anymore. And having seen them go through a lot of therapy, having seen them go through a lot of work with me, there's something like a kind of a karmic knot, a root pattern that we can work with that somehow appears to have been supported in letting go from this very deliberate, wise use of psychedelics, not in a recreational way, but in a really onward leading way.
Yeah. Wow, what a beautiful story. I love how you said that. If I can repeat what you said. I think did you say a karmic knot?
Karmic knot. Mm-hmm. These karmic knots that we have.
As you said, the karmic knot, I had this image of the brain cluster and the neural networks getting stuck, where the neural networks literally stop moving, right? The places in the brain, we're not using our full capacity of our brain, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we call it like instead of the somatic groove, we call it a cognitive groove, the story, the narrative that keeps repeating over and over again. And
Yes.
sometimes even with EMDR or brain spotting, and sometimes it just still is just not, it may eventually get there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like 2 years of doing the treatment. So I've seen the same thing. And sometimes people do 1 or 2 psychedelic journeys and that knot is just kind of untangled.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for me, of course, I'm no expert here, but one of the measures or questions I have is kind of like, is this just a state-specific realization and understanding? Or is it a kind of realization and understanding that can be integrated, kind of like we were speaking about earlier, that can be integrated into the extraordinary ordinariness of daily life? And for the people I'm talking about, it actually has been integrated. It's not just state-specific. It's enduring. And it's been interesting, some of the pockets of where I have observed this healing modality being effective. Like I have seen it be effective with regard to intergenerational pieces, motherline pieces. And the non-arising is something that we pay attention to in the path of Dharma. Like when there's the absence of dukkha, when there's the absence of something that's so troublesome, when that stops arising, we notice what's different in the heart mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so many wisdoms that you just brought us. So much.
Oh,
And I still want to go back, if we can, to the Dhamma practice and lens. When you
great.
said the karmic knot and the untangling of that, and
Mm-hmm.
whether it's state specific or enduring,
Yeah.
and in your experience, you've seen that it actually is enduring, probably because there is a practice of integration, right? Like
Right.
they're coming to you or already have a Dhamma practice.
That's right.
Sit and integrate the experience.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah.
you said about the ancestors and the mother line. My experience is that sometimes there's things that are so unconscious. Like we can do 5 years of sitting practice. We can do a 3-year silent meditation retreat. We can be in therapy for 10 years. And sometimes there's like an unconscious pattern that we're not even aware we're doing,
Yeah.
or an unconscious feeling, and maybe we're born with it and we don't quite,
Yes.
we can't even tell our therapist or our Dharma teacher, like, I have this feeling but I have no idea where it comes from, right? There's no origin, there's no genesis to it. And
Right.
there's something about the psychedelic or the plant medicine journeys, like you said, that karmic untangling just kind of happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From a Buddhist perspective, through the lens of karma,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how would you teach about the karma ripening and healing of that? Like if it's, I guess my question is, if it's psychedelic plant medicine, someone chooses to undertake through assisted practice, right?
That's huge. Yeah.
Karmically, does that mean they're choosing their healing? Like, so this is one of those, I guess, a political question.
Mhm.
How would you, if a student came to you and said, Erin, I had this profound journey, that thing we've been working on for 2 or 3 years, suddenly it's gone, right? And if you view that through the lens of karma, how would you respond to that?
I could say so much, Karen, and I love the articulation of the question, and I love that you're asking the question. It's so beautiful. Karma has to do with intention, right? Karma has to do with intention. It's the intention and the motivation behind an action that determines its karmic valence, so to speak. So going on a psychedelic trip, for example, let's say taking a journey with recreational, let me have a lot of fun, that's one kind of motivation, and that's going to have a certain kind of karmic outcome. Mm-hmm. Going in as a practitioner, eyes wide open, who has sensitivity to the ethical precepts of non-harming. The fifth precept, right, is about not misusing intoxicants. But I don't actually hear you talking about psychedelics as intoxicants in this way. I hear them as medicines. Those are two different means. So to me, going in with a intention that is holding the precepts of non-harming, not causing harm to ourselves or others, and that is holding a deep allegiance to freedom, to awakening, that's going to influence the flavor of the karma of the outcome. Intention is so powerful. We know that in very concentrated states. Perhaps that's true also with regard to the states that unfold within plant medicine journeys. But for me, if there is a lasting lessening of greed, hatred, delusion, a lasting lessening of suffering, that to me is merciful. That to me is merciful. That to me is what I would wish for the people that I love. And I want to say, I think it takes a lot of wisdom. I remember being at kind of an international Dharma teachers gathering at the Insight Meditation Society some years before the pandemic happened. And I was there with Ajahn Suchito, who is a great senior monastic presence within our lineage. He's been profoundly impactful to me in my own practice. And we were speaking in a small group about the kind of renaissance of psychedelic medicine as it relates to Buddhism. And I was asking him about it. And it was very interesting, his response. It wasn't a critical response, but he had kind of an eyes wide open wisdom piece. And he said, you have to watch your relationship with the medicine. And he said, if you're using it a lot, or if it's becoming addictive, he said the medicine will call you in a certain way. And he said, you need to be sure that your channel for the gravitational force field of the Dharma is like clear, and that there's non-interference. So that for me is a bit of a litmus test. Like, is the use of psychedelics with regard to healing in interference, or could it be a support? So I kind of come back to his words in that way. And it always comes down to the inquiry of, are our choices leading to more freedom or more suffering? And I know that your work is in service to freedom, liberation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for speaking to this, because this is so many Dharma practitioners I know, lay or monastic community, now that there is a psychedelic renaissance going on, right? It's extreme. I mean, ketamine is legal now. There's 3 states that have approved psilocybin. Even the state of Texas has now passed some legality to psychedelics. New Mexico has, right? So it's here to stay. It's not going away. Mm-hmm. And you spoke to the precepts about not taking any intoxicants, but then you also spoke to, but what is the intention here?
Yeah.
And it's the intention to have freedom.
Mm-hmm.
When we have freedom, we move into wholesome goodness to give back to ourselves, our community, and humanity, right?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have a student approach you and say, Erin, I'm really enjoying my plant medicine journeys and I have intention when I do them. And I'm wondering about adding this to my Dharma practice once a month, for example. Like if they actually had like a plan,
Mm-hmm.
how would you respond to that? Like if they had a plan for like a plant medicine journey once a month through the lens of expanding their Dharma practice, their consciousness in order to serve humanity more. How do you think you and or the Theravada community would respond to such a thing?
That's always delicate, right? For me personally, I would do some inquiry with this person. I would do some inquiry. From my understanding, it's important also to not rely. I mean, ideally, we don't want to rely on any substance for our freedom. And I also have great confidence in, I mean, I'm so fascinated by my own experiences of awareness. I'm so fascinated by the mystery of consciousness. Like that kind of does it for me at this point. I would want to understand the motivation, and I would also want to be checking in about, are they sitting regular retreats? Because like on a Buddhist silent meditation retreat, psychedelics don't have a place within that context. They're two different practices that can be complementary. But I'd want to, I guess, understand what was happening for them. I think I'd want to understand their relationship to it, maybe a little with the flavor of what Ajahn Suchito was saying. Yeah, I'd be curious to find out more. So I think that would be my way of approaching it would be curiosity and inquiry, not dogma.
Beautiful. Curiosity and inquiry. And it sounds like you're talking about if there's grasping, if there's like striving or grasping for a spiritual state, which also we talk about right in the Buddhist world. Like you don't strive, right, to stay in a certain spiritual state.
Right, not helpful.
Not
Yeah,
helpful.
and if there's any measure of we just want to watch for what's helpful with regard to the external world and what isn't. The Buddhist path, there's many paths. I'm not saying this is the only path, but renunciation is at the heart of the Buddhist path. And so it's important to also be looking at, if we put it all down, what are we here with? And so if a student doing that somehow is being if that supports a mind that lets go, that's a beautiful thing. But I would ask questions, and I think it would have a lot to do with the maturity, the depth of understanding in that person. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so well said, Erin. Thank you for this. Because I know it's a really delicate and kind of sensitive topic. I mean, it is in all fields, right? This is a really delicate, sensitive topic, because the legality of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you are working in the Dharma world where there is that renunciation.
Yeah.
Truly, in the precept is not to take intoxicants, right?
Yeah, it is.
Right.
And it's not my practice. That being said, when I see some of these things happening for people I deeply respect and trust, my eyes are open. And I don't have a moralistic judgment. What matters is an orientation toward freedom. And this person I was just thinking about, who kind of had this karmic knot just disappear in a long-term way, like, that's, this person said, boy, I'm like saving years of sitting. I mean, she'll keep sitting, but it is true.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, going back to the karma of that.
Dharma, yeah.
Yeah. So because of her intentionality and likely because of the years that she had already given into her practice, was the ability for the karmic tangle to untangle. Or we can say the karma together, the quantum entanglement, right? and the untangling of the quantum knot as well. We could view it as,
Yeah.
right? And also for someone else that does it, if they don't have that experience, it may
Right.
just not be their time karmically, right? Like I don't know if that simplifies it, but how would you help guide someone that maybe did not have that experience, right? And they go in and they have this very strong intention for a plant medicine journey, and they're very serious about their Dhamma practice, and they're very committed, and then they have a plant medicine journey, and then they don't have that relief, right?
Right.
And then they come forth and they say, oh my gosh, now I feel more hopeless because I did this plant medicine journey and I didn't have that quantum untanglement like my friend had.
Right.
How then would you also respond to that?
Oh, it's such a rich place of practice. Like it's our job to engage in path activity. It's our job moment to moment to engage in path activity and to know that nature takes care of the rest. We don't practice for spiritual materialism, right? We don't practice to acquire states. That's empty. This is really a path of radical non-acquisition. And so a mature practitioner knows when they go into a meditation retreat, for example, a silent retreat, no psychedelics, we don't know what's going to happen. It's all in how we meet the moment. So I would really caution anyone going in for a psychedelic experience to kind of think, oh, it's all on this one event. It's not. The cultivation is a whole way of life, and the experience is one thing, but what matters is the wisdom that remains. The experience, whatever, is just experience. All that matters is what is the understanding moving forward.
Wow, that is so profound, Erin. I want to repeat that, or if you can repeat that. That was so beautiful. What matters is not the experience, but the wisdom that remains.
Yeah. That's why we practice. That's why we practice. Yes, it's a great. I just love your questions, Karen. I think it's easy with the Renaissance for maybe people looking for a quick fix to turn to psychedelics with kind of mixed context, mixed motivation, but with mature understanding and an excellent guide such as yourself, the possibilities are it's huge. And just knowing that you hold people all the way through.
And it's so vitally important, right?
Totally.
Have to be held. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just about the medicine, like you said, it's about
It's about the medicine. It's about the wisdom. It's about the wisdom.
It's about the meditation sitting. It's about the wisdom that comes from the meditation sitting.
Exactly. Even when people go through these, what can be like kind of special meditative experiences, like we don't really focus that much on the experience itself, because most of the time it's conditioned, and what's conditioned, it falls apart. But we do focus on like, what is the understanding moving forward? Because that impacts the whole course of the mind stream, and that's very, very powerful. And that's powerful that's within the capacity of these human hearts and minds. Yeah.
Erin, it's been so truly lovely, and we're wrapping up here. And so in our last couple minutes, I'm just wondering if there's just anything collectively that you would like to share about any of this: trauma healing, psychedelic healing, the Dharma, Buddhist cosmology, anything you'd like to
It's such a wild time to be alive. Such a wild time to be alive, and we need all of the supports that we can get to navigate how it is to be a human being at this time. The Joanna Macy is so fresh in my mind as I'm with you today because of her recent passing, and I look at the legacy of her life, and I look at how passionately she embodied Dharma and study and practice, and she was always at the forward edge of the wave. She had so much courage to be at the forward edge of the wave, and she was bringing in practices that other people might have said, I don't know, but it was a reclamation of the fullness of the Buddha Dhamma in a way that was needed for our time. And so in the spirit of this conversation with you, we also need to be on the forward edge of the wave. There's urgency. We need to be on the forward edge of the wave and really looking deeply and radically at what is the Dharma of our times, what best serves now, what is the most merciful means of becoming as free as we can for ourselves and others. So trauma, psychedelics, and Buddhism, a relevant conversation, and just so much respect and gratitude, Karen, for all you do, for all of the beings that I know firsthand, the difference you make in their lives. So much gratitude for the integrity and depth of your presence and practice. So much gratitude.
And back to you times a millionfold. And I'm hoping we can finish by you just sharing a little bit about both the photos that are behind you. Kwam Yin.
Yeah. This is just from a friend's son who went to Myanmar, and he did a pilgrimage with his dad. And I was so moved. It was related to a foundation here, the Shanta Foundation, with the suffering that's happening in that country at this time. I hold their people near and dear to my heart because they are lineage holders. And then Kuan Yin, just one kind of an iconic picture, right? An iconic picture of Kuan Yin. And I love how she's sitting with her eyes open and her knee up, like she is ready to respond. She is ready to move. Her eyes are open as if she's saying, I see you. I'm right here. So just a good remembrance for this time.
And if we can just full circle back briefly to you.
Yes. Okay? Yes.
Point today during our sharing together that we were talking about your authenticity, right? And you went like this, arm. And right behind you is Kwam Yin doing the same thing. And you being Kwam Yin. And it was just so poignant.
Well, I wasn't even aware, but these great figures, these great beings, these great benevolent energies that we can call upon. Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Erin, so much. Many, many blessings.
To you too. To you too.
Okay. May it be so. May this spread and bring healing to humanity. And may you continue to benefit everyone you touch. And may they continue to benefit everyone they touch.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you for listening to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism with Karen Sprinkle. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more or to grab your copy of The Thriving Self, visit KarenSprinkle.com. Karen and this podcast do not endorse or encourage the illegal use of psychedelics.